everybody. Welcome to the Training, Learning, and Development community. Happy Thursday to all of you, at least here in the United States. It's Thursday. There's no day difference, is there, Deanne, between us and you?
Yeah, we're Friday morning, so we're a day ahead.
Your day ahead. That's right. I'm just like typical American. I'm just completely clueless about that stuff. But I really appreciate you taking the time out to have a chat with us. We're doing a member showcase, and really what these episodes are about is I like to reach out and just talk to people that are a part of the community, that are part of the learning and development effort, and just get to know them and maybe just establish a little bit of safety between the relationships. I've been reading your profile over and over again, like, wow, safety culture. So this is my effort to do that, and just allowing people to kind of get to know who you are and what you do. Yeah. And so we've got about 30 minutes and 9 questions. I'm just going to get into it because, Deanne, you have like a really, really fascinating background. I've gone over your profile on LinkedIn a couple of times. I'm like, look at this. She has done a bunch of stuff. So let's just start a little bit. Just something really, really basic. I know that L&D, learning and development, it isn't the only thing you do. You do a bunch of stuff. But where did your journey with that begin?
So my journey with L&D actually started probably about 7 or 8 years ago, and it was really interesting because obviously, like you said, I've got a really diverse background. I actually, started working, my first job was in the police as a police officer, and then kind of went into workplace health and safety, and then started the business. And when I first started the business, it was predominantly around work health and safety and HR consulting. And I actually was working with a client who asked me to build their global leadership development program. And my response to her was, I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. It's not my skill set. And she kind of come back to me and said, but you know what? I think you could do it. And so I always have Richard Branson's quote in the back of my head that if an amazing opportunity comes up, and you're not sure if you can do it, say yes, and then learn how to do it later on. So blindly, I went, absolutely, I'll do this for you, and literally had no idea what I was doing. And but anyway, went away and started then learning about learning and development, learning about how to build leadership development programs. And together with this client, we built this awesome global leadership development program, and I loved it. And I think that's where I found my passion for learning and development, and have, it's always been, I guess, part of my life since then. So that's probably when it really, really started. So
very nice. And so was that before or after you founded InSync Workplace Solutions?
So that was after. So I'd actually, this client had engaged me to do some HR consulting for her. So, and it was whilst doing that consulting, but then, we worked really well together, and she then asked me to develop the leadership program. So that was part of the business. And it's really interesting because I hated school. I was a really horrible student at school and thought I hated learning. And, but, since then I've actually discovered that I didn't hate learning. I actually loved learning. It was just school didn't work for me in terms of how my brain works as well. And that's where, I guess now with my learning and development journey, it's very much about making sure things actually fit with how people like to learn as well. So I've become a lifelong learner. So learning and development for me really is my passion now. And that's where it's kind of my happy place.
Right. Very nice. Now, I saw on your profile in different places that you consider yourself like a disruptor and somebody that really likes to think out of the box.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, I'm curious because I feel like in a lot of ways I'm the same way. I do like I'd like to break the rules or just change the game. But tell me a little bit about that. That characteristic.
Yeah, look, I guess, and again, this probably goes back. It was so funny. I was talking to someone a few weeks ago, and they said to me, tell me your story. And I said, I don't have a story. And I said, I haven't been through some significant event, or I haven't had this, awesome, celebrity career or something. And anyway, we started talking about different things, and it's really amazing. Everyone actually has a story. And when we started talking, she started pulling my story out. when I was at school, I remember a report card once said, actually, they all used to say it, Deanne is talkative, makes minimal effort, and is disruptive in class. And it's really quite funny because I used to look at it then and think my poor parents used to cringe because I had an older sister who was like the model student. And so I think for them, it was just like, oh my gosh, she's just so disruptive. She makes minimal effort. Now I look at it and think, that's what I do now. I love disrupting the way that we do things because I think that's where we get the magic and that's where people can actually learn. So from a learning and development perspective, I think, so many times, even when I was in operational roles before I obviously started the business, I would sit in training programs that were, death by PowerPoint, or it was you're being forced to learn a certain way and it didn't stick. And so when I went on to study psychology and neuroscience and learn all about how we actually take in information and how we get that information to actually land and stick, we need to disrupt what we do. We need to do things differently. So it's everything I do now, I look at it and go, right, this is the in the box way, but how can we do this to make sure it fits with these people or this group of people or this individual? So I think, certainly, and even conversations I have with, leaders in organizations and even their learning and development teams, sometimes they'll have this mindset of what they want to do. And I always try and pull it apart and go, well, why do you need to do this? Why do you need to do that? I always have a lot of people coming to me going, hey, we need a safety leadership program. And my first question is, do you have a leadership program? And they're like, yeah, absolutely, we do. Well, why do you need a separate safety leadership program? Leadership's leadership. So, hey, let's see what we can do. So many people in the safety industry cringe because they go, well, why would you do that? You could make an absolute fortune selling a safety leadership program to someone. But again, why have all these separate things? So I guess I kind of look at it and think I'm probably a disruptor in the way I do things, but also a disruptor in the way that I don't do things the way that people expect it to be done or go down that one path. It's always about looking at what's the best way we can do this for the people that we're actually trying to bring on the journey as well.
Right. No, I love it. And it does feel like, especially in this time period, that thinking outside of the box is really, really important, because so many things have changed and the rules have changed, and to be able to get certain things done, you have to just look at things in a different way. It feels like. So does that relate to your self-described, you call yourself a chief enabling officer?
Yes. Yeah. And it's, again, I think, so many times, and I take that as, I'm obviously the CEO of my business, but I don't consider myself a chief executive officer. I'm an enabler. So my role and my purpose and my mission is to enable people to unlock their full potential and, give them that competitive edge. So whether it's a business or an individual, whatever I do, I see my role is enabling them. So so that's why I've changed my title to chief enabling officer instead of, chief executive officer. And I think it fits with, even if I look at organizations, I think, those leaders in the organizations are the enablers. They're the ones that are actually giving their people that opportunity to actually grow and develop and learn. So I'd actually love to see that change in titles everywhere. And instead of having chief executive officers, have chief enabling officers. I saw one the other day and it was the chief happiness officer, and that was the wellbeing person. I'm like, that's a pretty cool title as well. So I think, again, people are starting to look at how can we disrupt and do things differently to make them more human-centered as well, which is, I think that's probably one of the great things that's come out of, the past 2 years, whilst they've been 2 pretty shit years, excuse the language, but it's, one of the things I think we've come back to, someone said, nice backdrop, Deanne. I don't know if you've actually seen my dogs running in and out, but I think, one of the things we've kind of accepted in the last 2 years with working from home is everyone's human. Like, we have these things going on in our lives. We have dogs, we have kids, we have family, I learned early on and we're in lockdown still here in Sydney, but I learned early on last year, don't do Zoom calls on a Tuesday morning when it's the garbage collection day, because all you can hear was bottles like clanging as they were emptying the garbage truck. So it's about, just accepting people and for who we are and giving them the tools and the environment to actually grow as well. So that's kind of where the chief enabling officer comes from.
I love it. And, I sort of feel a little embarrassed that I just got your LinkedIn profile next to me, but I can't help but ask, you also work as an organizational psychologist and behavioral trainer.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you explain that piece of it, in relation to like everything else that you're doing?
Yeah, so it actually it's a project I'm actually working on at the moment for one of our government organisations, and they actually came to me because they want to really, I guess, see themselves as being a leader and a bit of a disruptor in the industry as well, in terms of building that psychologically safe workplace. So, which is again one of my passions as well. So my role there is actually having a look at from that that organizational psychology perspective, and then actually going through and then developing the training programs for their people to actually enable them again to do what they need to do. So with that project, we're kind of going through, and it's all about building a psychologically safe work environment. So, we're looking at it from a psychology perspective, from a neuroscience perspective, but also that human-centered approach too, because we know that if people feel comfortable and valued and belonged, have that sense of belonging, they will thrive. And if they thrive, then organizations thrive as well.
Wow. So how much has your job changed in the last 2 years since the pandemic began?
Look, it's changed a lot. I think like most people and organizations have probably experienced the same thing. I think last year when it all first happened, I was ready to jump on a plane to go to New Zealand the next morning, on the Monday morning, to deliver training over there for a week, and borders shut, sort of that night, and everything sort of, I think from a training perspective, everything really stopped for that first couple of weeks while everyone was trying to, I think most of us thought it was only going to last for a very short period of time, then we'd be over it and it'll be fine. So I know a lot of my clients kind of, just stopped with training. It was just, what do we need to do? So my business kind of pivoted then back to really, it was around that HR and work health and safety consulting, like how do we keep operating in this global pandemic? What do we need to do? How do we keep our people safe? What does that mean from, so many businesses had to close as well or scale back their staff. So we went through a period where, business probably tripled in that time, but in the consulting side and the training actually dropped. So, but I think once people realized that this wasn't going away and it was going to be around for a while, then we started training. So everything pivoted then to online training. So, we were doing lots of virtual training, things like, lunch and learns, doing them virtually, shortening training, just really changing the way that we actually did things. And then that's really kind of continued. And I think it's going to be an interesting space moving forward as well. Whilst I think everyone's absolutely, I know here, we're all absolutely hungry for face-to-face human contact again. I think once sort of borders open again and once we can start traveling again, training face-to-face will come back a little bit. But I think technology-wise, people have realised that they can do a lot via Zoom, Teams, all of those different platforms. So I've certainly found I've had lots of opportunities that I would not have had if it wasn't for COVID. I've delivered lunch and learns. Well, there've been lunch and learns for the participants, probably midnight snacks and coffee for me, sessions to the UK and to the US and different places where I wouldn't have had that opportunity previously because people always wanted things done face to face. Whereas, I think COVID and the lockdown has actually expanded people's sort of thoughts and the way they look at things, and it's really given us a lot of opportunities over here in Australia to deliver programs and training to the world, which has been fantastic. So some good's come out of it. that aspect of psychological safety has now that so many of us have moved to remote learning environments, has your sort of approach to all of that had to change significantly, or still the same kinds of problems, or are they very different? Still the same kinds of problems. Some are different as well, and I know we chatted just before we went live about how over here in Australia, I think we've found that people are not coping as well this year as last year with lockdowns. We kind of were living life normally again at the start of the year. We kind of come out of lockdown, everything was back to normal. We're all traveling, we're all doing things with still some restrictions in place. And then suddenly we went back into the biggest lockdown we'd had. So, we've found that even working with clients, there's been lots of issues around people are not coping. There's a lot of, mental health is coming out as well. People are stressed. A lot of people have lost their jobs, those kind of things. So I think the psychological safety piece has actually highlighted and come to the forefront a lot more, because people are now going, right, how do we actually make our people feel comfortable that they can speak out and they can sort of come up with different ideas about the way we can do things in the workplace whilst feeling safe as well. And certainly doing it online is, for some people it's better. They enjoy it more than that face-to-face, because it's kind of that barrier between them. They're not sitting in a room with someone, so they do feel a lot more comfortable actually having those conversations and speaking, their truth or their mind as well. So I think it certainly has changed. I think it's about being more mindful of people as well, and it's about picking up on those signs. If you're running a training session or, whatever it is, it's about just picking up on the subtle little signs, how someone is feeling, how they're coping. Whereas if you're in a classroom together, it's a lot easier sometimes. So certainly I think, yes, it has changed, but the focus, the principles, I guess, are still the same. The fundamentals are still the same. It's just being a lot more mindful of other people and the impact of being at home or doing whatever they're doing and having to deal with, homeschooling or whatever it is that they're dealing with as well.
Very interesting. So for about InSync, why did you found the company?
So I founded the company because working in operational roles, I dealt a lot with consultants, and I was really frustrated, I guess, that, there was lots of businesses out there, but they didn't really give me what I wanted or what I needed. And they were very set in their sort of structure about how they did things, and it was their way of doing things and not necessarily the client's way of or what the client needed. So at the time, I had a really horrible boss, and I convinced him that he didn't need me anymore, and I got a redundancy package, which was fantastic. So that was my opportunity to start the business. And I remember my husband sort of, saying to me, he was quite nervous because he's in the police, so, used to having that stability of, you work a job, you get your paycheck and all of that kind of stuff. And I said, look, I'll give it 6 months. If it doesn't work, I'll go back to a real job. And nearly 9.5 years later, it's going strong. So I started predominantly because I wanted to give people what they needed and not what a consultant was just trying to sell them because that's what they wanted. So, and again, I guess it was a bit of that. If I look now and think that whole disruptor piece, that was probably my mindset back then as well. I wanted to disrupt that consulting industry too. And it wasn't about me, it was about my clients. So that's why too, I think early on when people would say, hey, can you do this for us? And I'd be like, that is not my skill set. I have no idea. And it was like, hell yeah, I can do it. And I'd work it out later on. So, and it's really grown. And, for me now, I could not imagine going back to doing anything else. It's just, it's been fantastic. It's been an amazing journey, a lot of hard work. I won't lie about that. And people who say owning your own business is, a walk in the park, it's absolutely not. Especially in those early years when you're everything. You're the marketer, you're the salesperson, you're the facilitator, you're the accountant, you're absolutely everything. So it's a lot of hard work, but it's really, really rewarding as well. And I think for me, seeing people succeed and seeing people thrive, that actually lights my fire and warms my heart, and that's what motivates me.
Yeah, and I think that's core to sort of a lot of L&D professionals, why they do what they do. So that fits right in. Is there anything, like, if you could go back to yourself, like to right before you started the business, to give yourself some advice? Is there anything that you would tell yourself?
Yeah. I guess I am a bit of a control freak and a perfectionist, and it's really interesting because I think if I went back then, it would be look at what your strengths are, play to your strengths, and outsource everything else. Whereas I probably tried to take it all on myself initially, and no one did as good a job as what I did. Whereas I've learned now that people do a really good job, and my way isn't always perfect either. So if that was a bit of advice I could give myself was, have that open mind with things, and just, trust other people can do it just as good as you, and probably better sometimes too. And learn to let go of things as well.
Yeah. So Deanne, what was the first thing that you outsourced?
The first thing I outsourced was my accounting, I'm hopeless. I hate doing invoices and bills. And I would find I get distracted so easily. My brain is seriously, that's why I love the neuroscience of things too, because, you know, when you look at it, my brain, I just lose interest in things really quickly. If it doesn't interest me, I have, you know, my attention span is like this big. So something would normally take me, you know, to do the accounts should only take me an hour, would take me about 6 hours, because I'd sit there and I'd get distracted and I'd procrastinate. And then so I'd start internet shopping, or I'd do something else, and I'd look for distractions to stop doing it. So that was probably the first thing that I outsourced, was that.
I love it. No, I'm definitely in the same boat. I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
So how about something that you do that is really, really hard for you to do, but you need to do it and you won't let go of it?
Yeah, look, something that's really hard for me to do is, oh gosh, what is it? There's probably a few things. I'm just trying to think. That's a really good question. I have no idea.
No, I like that one, because it might, you know, especially if there are people that are in sort of maybe following the same kind of journey that you're following, or interested in that, and then so that they could be like, oh yeah, okay, there's, you know, that is something that I should consider. It is a good question. Is there anything that comes to mind at all?
No, there's not at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm not a natural salesperson. That's probably one of my biggest issues with the business. I'm not a natural salesperson. I'm not one of those people that can go, hey, look at me, you know. So I'm very much around, not putting myself out there as well, which I know, you know, potentially you should, but I also find that other people, that's probably something I need to let go of and get someone else to do that as well, because I know if someone else probably did it, they'd do a lot better job at it than what I do. But I'm sure there's lots of things, and I'll think of lots more things after this call, but at the moment,
right. No, I know for myself, that one is actually like accounting for me. It's like, it's really, really hard for me to do that one, but I still try to do it regardless. So is there anything right now that you're working on with for professional development? Any skills that you're currently trying to build? Yeah,
look, and it's really interesting. I still think back, for someone who absolutely hated school and didn't think I was a very good learner, I'm a lifelong learner, and I'm always doing something. So at the moment, I've just finished doing my master's in organizational psychology as well. And I'm also now doing a certification course in psychological safety. So again, there's so many different things, and I love doing other people's programs to learn from other people as well, because I think, you know, one of the pitfalls of when you've got a business too, sometimes you can go down a path of you just do and teach what you know and teach. I love to do other people's programs so I can learn from them. I can see how they're facilitating. I can see what they're doing as well. So I'm always looking for short courses, different things I can do. You know, I finish a course, and even my husband, he'll be like, what are you doing now? It's like, oh, I'm just signing up for another course. And he's like, why do you want to do another course for? But again, I think it's just, you have to keep feeding your brain as well, and just learning. And I think for any learning and development professional out there, I think if you think you can stop learning and just teach what you already know, is one of probably the biggest pitfalls. You have to keep learning yourself. You have to keep looking. There's so much research out there, and there's people doing some really amazing things. So I spend hours each week just trolling through the internet, seeing what else is new, what's coming up, you know, what someone's doing, and I'll jump onto that as well and do those. So, you know, I think I'm probably, at any given time, I'm usually doing 2 or 3 sort of short courses whilst running the business and doing everything else. So, yeah. So
Deanne, I mean, you write a lot about psychological safety, and was it just singularly because you had a workplace and like a toxic boss, or were there other elements to like why you really became an expert at that?
So I think what kind of, and I guess, you know, a couple of years ago, we kind of didn't really even talk about it. And I guess probably the last 18 months or 2 years, I think it's really, you know, we're starting to hear a lot more about it in organizations. I've worked with some amazing organizations, some amazing leaders over the years. I've worked with some really toxic ones as well. And it really shows in organizations that have that those toxic leaders, because the culture is really horrendous too. And people, you see some amazing people who are just trapped there and feel that they can't, you know, they'll have some great ideas, but they feel that they can't speak up and they can't sort of, you know, they'll never grow in that organization, but they're kind of trapped there as well and feel that they can't leave. So for me, when I started studying the psychology and the neuroscience, was what probably started my interest in it, because, you know, if you think about how our brains work and, you know, that whole threat reward process as well, you know, that kind of flows into the psychological safety, because if you're sort of setting up that environment where people feel comfortable that they can, you know, they can speak their mind, they can own up to their mistakes, you know, they can share their ideas, they're going to thrive. And if your people thrive, your business is going to thrive as well. So for me, that's where it came from too. I kind of look at it and go, I guess anything I do, I kind of look at it from a more holistic perspective as well. It's about how can this help the person, but also the business as well. And I think, you know, fundamentally, if we can get our people in that space where they can absolutely shine, the business will shine too. So, and the psychological safety piece really comes into that. You know, there's other bits and pieces as well, but I think certainly if you've got an environment where that people do feel comfortable, they're going to bring their best self to work, and businesses will benefit from that.
Right. And you have your mission includes like focusing on diversity and equity and inclusion and accessibility, all of that. So, you know, that is a really, I mean, that's a huge thing, that the idea of psychological safety. So that is fantastic.
Absolutely. And you can see the organizations that do it really well. You know, we benefit so much from that diversity of thought as well. So, you know, again, an organization where everyone feels comfortable that they can have their say and will be heard too. And it's really interesting over the years, like I've spoken to, you know, everyone from, you know, employees on the shop floor through to CEOs and executives. And it's really interesting even how many senior executives feel that they can't speak their mind because they're worried about what their peers will say or what they will think as well. So I think, again, that whole piece fits in so nicely together. So yeah, so that's my mission and my passion.
I love it. Deanne, thank you so much for sharing all that with us. I have one more last question with you. If there's one thing that people should know about you, what is it?
Oh gosh, if one thing that they should know, I am, one thing? My brain never stops. Like literally, actually, that's one thing I wish I could let go of, and I wish I could relax. I just am constantly, I just never stop. So if there's one thing people should know about me, it's that I literally never stop. I'm constantly sort of on the move, constantly looking at the way I can change things and do things. And just, I am who I am. So, you know,
I love it.
I will always say what I think as well, which might be career limiting sometimes as well. But I will absolutely always say what I think and how I feel too. And actually one thing as well is that I will never do anything that doesn't sit with my values. So I've actually walked away from clients and opportunities in the past as well because they didn't sit with my values. And I think I hold that very, very dearly and close to my heart, that I'm not in this to make money. It's about making life better for people, and it's about knowing that I've done all I can to actually help people, individuals and organizations. And if I feel I'm in an organization and I'm not helping, I'm not contributing, or I'm not adding value, I will walk away from it.
I love it. Oh, Deanne, it's so great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you too.
What a wonderful addition to our community. I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to chat. Really appreciate your time. And I'm looking forward to hopefully like talking to you at some point again. I would love to explore more about your mission. I mean, it's so interesting. And especially from an L&D perspective, there is so much there. So I might be hitting you up later.
No problem at all. Thank you so much. And great to talk to you too. And looking forward to, you know, obviously contributing more to the community and meeting the other members in the community as well. So I think learning and development is such an awesome, inclusive community as well, where we can all share our learnings too, to help one another and support one another. So if I can help anyone in any way, please just reach out. So
absolutely. Well, I am planning a DEI event, hopefully before the end of the year. In fact, I'm having a planning meeting on Monday. So
fantastic.
You might hear from me sooner rather than later. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Deanne, thank you so much. Appreciate you spending your morning with us. And with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Monday, I am having, like I was saying, everybody, on Monday, I am going to do a DEI sort of planning meetup. It's open to everybody, even though there is like a group of advisory folks that are involved with that one. It's going to be open to everyone just because I want to discuss what it means for the community. The DEI initiative that I want to build in is actually just a lot bigger than just an event. So we're going to be working on that on Monday. Lots more videos coming up. And with that, Deanne, thanks a lot. Have a great weekend. And we'll see everybody next week. All right. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.